Hello everyone and hope you are doing well. So again with our series of videos making effective lesson plan, this is the seventh lesson and we are going to talk about the lesson of read and write. Actually, it should be called read to write because at the end we want our students to produce that something that's related to what they read. So let's jump directly into this lesson. What do we have? Now, I want to say that this lesson is very, very important to me, and I think this lesson is one of the crucial one. If you do it right, trust me, you will find it so easy for you to finish your sequence, and of course, also to ensure that your students are going to take good marks when it comes to the evaluation. So, we in the lesson plan we talked about cross-curricular competencies, not going to change. We have the sequence in our mind. Let's say, for example, me and my family. But today also I'm going to talk about, let's say, for example, if you are going to do a lesson about pollution. So let's say lesson one, read and write. Still we are with the PDP, so still we are the pre and during and post. And the objective, let's say, for example, by the end of this session, learners will be able to write an email. Of course, it's always important that you try to tie what you are teaching with kind of a communicative objective, not just to write, for example, to write a paragraph, but to write an email or something tangible. So the vocabulary here, some not name, age, country, family, card, this can change. As I said, I'm also going to talk about the idea of pollution. Let's say the structure, present simple, materials. Now, for materials, usually this is so important for the read and write lesson. If you don't have the text like printed or you are going to bring a text, maybe you won't need a textbook. But sometimes as teachers, I always want to be efficient. So it's my job to look for if I have a text in my textbook, then in this case, I won't like spend much time looking for resources. And I have the worksheet, and this is something that I really, really like to use when it comes to read and write. I like to put like everything in a worksheet, and I will tell you why. So let's jump directly here. And before we move that, let's go to the hidden objective of this lesson. As a hidden objective in this lesson, what I want to do, a read and write lesson is the best opportunity to train your learners for tests. You see, many times some teachers like they focus on the listening and speaking, and but when it comes to the day of the exam they find it very difficult, or their learners they are not going to perform well. And this is because your learners are only listening and speaking, but you know that all the tests are done with are written exams. So this is why I really take my time when I design read and write lesson. I have in my mind my tests in the future. So this is why I would say this session can be seen as repository for your learners. So everything that you are going to write by the end of this session, that's something that your learners are going to revise. And why this is why I really emphasize the idea of read and write lesson. Now, employing the same pattern of question used in test. Now, for example, why I said I use worksheets. So, for example, I give them a text, the questions, synonyms, opposites, etc. All this just to mimic the same style that they are going to see during the test. So this is very, very important for you to mind when you are designing and read and write lesson. And at the end, I really like to foster the idea of group work. This is something I really, really like, especially in read and write. I know that some teachers they tell me there are so many negative aspects, and trust me, I have seen most of them. But if you do it right, it will be really amazing. So these are the hidden objective, and these really should be minded when you are designing a read and write lesson. Now let's go to why we need the warm up. In this case, we start with the warm up. Of course, I'm going to tell you why. In the read and write lesson, and if you have done like the previous listen and speak well, trust me, the transition to read and write is going to be so easy. So, assessing students' understanding of the previous lecture, while also here creating like seamless transition to the new material. This is the warm up here, and it should be done like so easy, especially if you have mastered the previous lesson. And this is why I said, like from the beginning, from the start of the sequence, you have designed the listen and speak and read and write like they are connected, like the same theme, the same topic. So we don't need to introduce like so many new vocabularies. This will confuse your learners. So this is why it's so important to just to really make them link together. And And here I want to just give like a small tip for you students when you are assessing or when you're asking learners, you don't want to block your session. That's why you should start always with your fast learners. Ask them because when you ask your fast learners, they are going to answer. And your slow learners in the background, they are listening and they try to grasp what they are saying. And this is, in this case, you're kind of doing assessment and at the same time helping slow learners or learners who did not pay attention or did not even revise the previous session. And of course, what you are doing, consolidating prior knowledge and bridge the gap between students, what have students have learned, and what they are going to learn here in this session. So this kind of consolidating, you check, for example, the vocabulary you have told them like the last session. So you try to bridge the gap between the two. And of course, maybe if you have like new vocabularies, you want to introduce like new vocabulary, or you have like not a new topic because that would not be advisable. But if you have new vocabularies, you can just introduce them like using pictures or any kind of, let's say, tools. So this is concerning the warm up. Now, when we move to the post or the pre, because what I do, as I said here, I like to work with worksheets. So I kind of give them like the text and the question all together and I give them to my learners and I give them and they are working with in groups. And all my job here is just to supervise, just to help. In this session, if you find yourself like really doing a lot of work, trust me, it's not done right. Your learners should be the ones who are going to really get tired. They are going to look for answers and try to answer, and in the same trying to read. So I usually give them 10 minutes to answer the questions, and I help them. And there is one thing in this session. This session usually I try to evaluate my learners. What I do, I really keep track of their activities. So I'm kind of taking noticing everything. In fact, I sometimes give marks for each group. Like for this group has done well. This by this I try to encourage them to work together, and I also encourage them to really try to put all their efforts in this activity. So this is very important, especially if you want to foster the idea of group work. So, for example, if we talk about, for example, pollution, let's say, for example, I have this text because the most important element in the read and write is the text you are going to provide. For example, let's say pollution, I'm going to provide this text. It's way better to put it in a worksheet and you just distribute it to your learners, and learners are going to find the question and try to answer. For example, for this text, I put like a simple question like, what is pollution? Can you name one type, etc., etc. Now, for the question, I would advise that you do some kind of like the difficulty, you try to raise the difficulties a bit by bit. Like the first question should be that easy question, like any students can answer. You give them confidence. Then the second question, it's a bit complicated. Then the third question, something that only can be deduced from the text. And the fourth question, maybe, or the fifth question, something maybe it's not even in the text, maybe something of critical thinking, something they can relate their life with what they have read. So it's really important to follow this when it comes to a text. And of course, always we do like synonyms and opposites. Like every question you are going to, or you think of when it comes to the test, you really need to put it inside the read and write lesson. For example, here I said contaminate, harmful, environment, synonyms from the text. Now this is concerning the first part, because in this session usually one session is not enough. 1 hour is really not enough for read and write. I used to teach in middle school, and I used to argue that 1 hour is really not enough, especially because in this session I provided the warm up, the questions, the answer, and I also take like 5 to 10 minutes for my students to read to help them in their pronunciation. So no, one session usually is not enough. I know that some people they are going to debate this. In fact, I was engaged in many debates with the inspectors, but I said no, it's really not sufficient. So the second part, like in the production, I kind of give them a small project, and this small project starts as a homework after I finish. Then they can take it. For example, let's say, for example, we're talking about pollution. Here, I like to link. what we have in real life with the art study. For example, we say there is pollution. Okay, good. We know that we have technology, we have phones. I can tell my learners, okay, can you take pictures? Can you ask your father, for example, or if you are in secondary school, take pictures and you bring these pictures and in photos or something, or you could even put a video projector to show them or something like this, and they are going to collect data. So it's kind of not only they are going to write, that we are kind of doing something good, something that relates what we have in theory with our life. So it's kind of a small project, and this is something I really advise all teachers to do, no matter the topic is. Just always try to find something that is exciting. Of course, some students, some teachers are going to tell me, okay, this is difficult, require resources. Well, you can simplify it the way you want. It depends on your learner. Some, believe me, some of your learners, they are trying to bring pictures and do all the work. Some of them, they don't have maybe resources to do that. Maybe they're just going to bring you a text, but whatever they do, you just try to help them. So and the next session, all what you are going to devote one session is like you relate everything, and they are going to present to you what they have written, and you help them to write something perfect. Now let's talk about the production phase, because many teachers they tell me, okay, I have a problem, my students don't write. I would say like the simplest version of their production should be like the same questions they have answered. Let's go back to them. The same question they have answered, they can be reformulated and put into the text. I said this is the most easiest way to produce. Just bring these questions, answer them, and you can put them in a paragraph. Maybe just add some kind of link words, conjunctions, etc., and then you have a paragraph. Of course, some students know they have like the ability to produce more, especially if you have encouraged them to write, to do some kind of small project to prepare it for you the next session. Trust me, they will do something good. And I'll always avoid like asking them like, okay, bring me a project, write something. They will just copy paste from the internet. You don't want that. You want them to bring something from their neighborhood, for example. Okay, go and if you can take a picture and put that picture in a word and write something, for example, where do you live? Do you see kind of pollution? Like simple paragraphs, simple sentences would be much better than just copy paste everything. And of course, the next session or the next video, sorry, is going to be about PPU. I know some teachers they will tell me, okay, why you didn't start with the PPU session or the grammar session or the practice session? I would always allow my students to be immersed inside the team more than the language. So only after this session that I will consider talking about grammar. And trust me, you can do one thing in this. You can, for example, highlight grammatical aspects in the text so you can use them later. So inshallah, we see you in the next video. Please don't forget to subscribe to follow our page. So goodbye.